By the early 1980s, Ferrari was in trouble. Sales were sliding, competition from Porsche and Lamborghini was biting hard, and Enzo himself was growing increasingly irritated at what he described as the gentrification of his road cars. Ferrari had built its reputation on fire-breathing machines that blurred the line between road and racing. But by the dawn of the decade, the lineup had softened. The 308, GTB and GTS were stylish, but in performance terms they were beginning to look more like playthings for wealthy dentists than weapons of motorsport. So something had to be done. And this is where the 288 GTO enters the picture. Ferrari needed not just a faster car, but a rolling declaration of intent. Something that would drag the brand back into motorsport relevance. The 288 wasn't just another Ferrari, it was conceived as a racing car first, a road car second, and a revival of the marque's most famous badge, GTO, meaning Gran Turismo Omologato. Those three letters hadn't been seen on a Ferrari since the 1960s, and their return carried a weight of expectation almost impossible to match. Yet, somehow Ferrari managed it. Now the seeds of the 288 were sown with the 208 Turbo, a car that seemed more like an act of desperation than engineering brilliance. Tax laws in Italy penalized engines over 2 liters, so Ferrari took its 308 and stuffed a tiny turbocharged 2-liter V8 inside. And on paper it was clever, but in practice it was a disaster. With no intercooler and little development, it was unreliable, laggy, and nowhere near worthy of the badge on its nose. Enzo knew this wasn't the answer. What he needed was someone who could build a proper turbo engine for the road, and for that he turned to Nicola Materazzi. This was the man who had worked on the Lancia LC2 Group C car, a machine that lived and breathed forced induction. Materazzi's task was simple: take the lessons from the racetrack and apply them to Ferrari's next halo car. And the result was the F114B engine, a 2.8-liter 90-degree V8 with double overhead cams and 4 valves per cylinder. Now you might wonder, why 2.8 liters? Well, that's because of homologation rules for Group B racing. You see, Group B rules cap the engine size at 4 liters, but turbocharged cars were subject to a 1.4 equivalency multiplier. That meant if Ferrari wanted to race, it couldn't go bigger than 2.857 liters. Materazzi hit that figure almost to the decimal. Then, 2 IHI turbochargers fed the engine, each paired with a bare air-to-air intercooler. Compression was dropped to 7.6 to 1 to cope with the boost pressure, and fuel was delivered via a Weber Marelli injection system. The figures were staggering for the time: 400 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and 366 pound-feet of torque at just 3,800. Suddenly, Ferrari had a car that could hit 189 miles per hour and reach 60 in around 5 seconds. These were numbers that put it in a different galaxy compared to the 308. Now I know, at first glance, you might think the 288 was just a slightly reworked 308. After all, Pininfarina's Leonardo Vio Avanti used the 308 as the starting point, but peel back the panels and almost nothing was the same. The wheelbase was stretched, the track was wider, and the body was constructed from exotic materials like Kevlar, fiberglass, and carbon fiber composites to keep weight to a trim 1,160 kilograms. The styling was as much about function as it was form. Those swollen arches weren't just for show, they were to swallow huge 16-inch wheels wrapped in meaty tires. The quad driving lamps, the flag mirrors, the deep front spoiler, all added aggression, but also real aerodynamic and cooling benefits. And then there were the slatted intakes on the rear haunches, a direct callback to the legendary 250 GTO of the 60s. It was Pininfarina at its best, evolutionary, respectful, but with enough menace to announce that this was no mere derivative of the 308. And here's where things get really interesting. Ferrari didn't just build the 288 GTO because it wanted a fast road car. It was built because Group B racing existed. The FIA's infamous regulations demanded 200 production cars for homologation, and Enzo Ferrari saw an opening. If Lancia could dominate rallying with the 037, why couldn't Ferrari do the same? So the 288 was built in sufficient numbers, with the intent that racing variants would follow. Materazzi pushed for even more radical development, working with a small team after hours to create what became the 288 GTO Evoluzione. This car was outrageous. The same V8 was pushed to over 650 horsepower. The body was stripped and widened into an aerodynamic science project, and performance leapt into a realm few could comprehend. And only 5 of these were built, along with only one prototype. And then, disaster. Group B was cancelled in 1986 after a series of tragic accidents in rallying. The Evoluzione never got its chance to compete, but in a twist of fate, this failed project directly inspired what would become Ferrari's most famous car of the 1980s, the F40. The aggressive bodywork, the twin-turbo V8, the raw brutality of its design, all can be traced back to those Evoluzione prototypes. And despite the collapse of the racing program, the 288 GTO went on sale between 1984 and 1987, with 272 units being produced. This was far more than the 200 required for homologation, suggesting Ferrari realized early on that the GTO could succeed as a road-going halo car in its own right. And succeed it did. Buyers flocked to it, despite a price tag that dwarfed most cars of the era. Everywhere you looked, the 288 was a showcase of Ferrari's ambition. The longitudinal engine placement was a huge departure from the transverse layout of the 308, chosen to better accommodate the racing gearbox and allow easier packaging of the turbos. The chassis was beefed up to handle the torque, the brakes enlarged to cope with the speed, and the cockpit stripped back to emphasize the business-like nature of the machine. It wasn't luxurious. In fact, by Ferrari standards, it was borderline Spartan. But that was the point. This was a machine built to homologate a racing car, not to pamper its owners. And while Lamborghini was selling flamboyant Countaches to men in chains, Ferrari had built something far more serious. The 288 wasn't about posing, it was about speed, precision, and reclaiming Ferrari's place at the sharp end of performance engineering. So the 288 GTO sits in an odd position in Ferrari's history. It laid the foundation for the F40, which became the ultimate poster car of its era, and it rekindled the idea that Ferrari should be deeply connected to the company's racing ambitions. Yet at the same time, it also signaled the last gasp of an old philosophy built under Enzo Ferrari himself. The 288 was a product of stubborn vision as much as it was market necessity. Enzo famously gifted the last 288 produced to Niki Lauda, a gesture that tied the car directly to Ferrari's racing DNA. After Enzo's passing in 1988, Ferrari's directions shifted. Later halo cars like the F50, Enzo and LaFerrari all carried the torch, but none of them were born out of such a raw attempt to wrestle a racing program into existence. In total, 272 road cars, 5 Evoluzione models and 1 prototype were built. That's it. Yet, their impact has echoed for decades. The 288 is now regarded not just as one of Ferrari's finest achievements, but as the car that saved the company from sliding into irrelevance in the 1980s. But yeah, at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of the video, what do you guys think of this car, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like this video, you must probably enjoy most of my other stuff, so just go through my channel, see if there's something else I like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?